everybody. Welcome to this session on our postgraduate taught programs. As Moira has already said, my name is David Lewin. I'm just going to move on to my slide and welcome you formally. Dr. David Lewin, I'm a reader in education studies here at the University of Strathclyde. Primarily my role is Director of Postgraduate Taught Programs. That's actually a fairly new role for me, so hopefully any new questions that come up I'll be able to answer, but bear with us if there's other things you ask and we can find things out. I also teach on the Education Studies main MSc in Education Studies, which I'll say something a bit about later on. It might be worth saying that I myself have done two master's degrees a few years ago now, one in computer science and the other one in religious studies. Quite different master's experiences they were. They were very different, very interesting. So I'm quite experienced as a student as well, of course, as a tutor. So I've been at Strathclyde for 10 years teaching on the MSc Education Studies. So you can see my email address there. It's also going to be at the end of the presentation. So if you wanted to ask follow-up questions or anything that I don't answer during the presentation, you can always ask later on. So first sort of thing to address is why study a master's course at all? Now, it is first and foremost an academic study which deepens your understanding. So it is postgraduate level, of course, it's advanced, it builds on knowledge and understanding that you already have. We develop specialist knowledge, we use develop analytic skills and have a very keen interest in the professional and intellectual landscape of whichever particular professional area that we're working within. And you'll see some of the particular professional contexts in which our portfolio of postgraduate taught programs supports. One of the best things about being a PGT student is engaging in dialogue with other students and staff and researchers, and you're part of a whole community of academic debate and discussion within a university field and setting. So it's a really exciting opportunity to engage with colleagues, peers, and academic staff and wider academic communities. So that's a big part of it. And of course, it's also a great preparation for further research and professional development. And probably that's going to be on everybody's mind when they're thinking about postgraduate taught programs, master's programs. So master's level learning and practice. So it is master's level. It's building on, as it were, the bachelor's level of teaching and learning. And it's designed, therefore, to really develop critical thinking, evaluative judgment. Often our students will be in tandem with or have had professional practice. And so an important focus for us is to ensure students have the ability to analyse critically this kind of practice, whether this is school teaching or other kinds of professions. And that means engaging with research. So researchers engage in activity which underpins and supports professional practice in different domains. The relationship between theory, research that is, and practice is a big part of any master's program. So understanding the relevance, I suppose, of theory and analysis to professional practice is key. After all, you don't want to do theoretical investigation until you understand the reason and the value of it. So as it says at the bottom of the screen, we typically require critical understanding, originality, creativity, managing complex professional and ethical issues. In short, masters, I suppose the distinction between undergraduate and postgraduate masters and then going on is the high level of autonomy, that self-regulation that you are given as students. Is up to you exactly what you do, and there's freedom to develop interests through dissertations and other forms of activity that are self-regulated. Now, in the Scottish context, it's worth noting that the master's programs are placed within a sort of ladder, let's say, or a hierarchy of different levels. This screen shows you a range of the different levels, and I'm not going to talk through them all, but just to kind of indicate that level 9 shows bachelor's, that is ordinary degree, the first degree, let's say. 10 is what in Scotland we call an honours degree, and we have a 4-year degree in Scotland, so that would include an honours a year. But what we do at master's level, which is the focus for today, of course, is level 11. That's integrated master's or master's degree, postgraduate certificates and diplomas. So that's the broader context within the framework of qualifications. And it's worth, of course, observing that beyond that is doctoral degree, which is the highest awarded level within the Scottish credit and qualifications framework. So for those of you aspiring to continue studies beyond masters, you know, that's the sort of structure. So zooming in then on SCQF level 11, which is what we focus on. I'm not going to read through all this. If you want to read through all this, you can download it all. It's just Googling SCQF descriptors, and then you'll be able to read in detail about what's expected or the outcomes, let's say, of any program in master's level at really any Scottish university, but of course would include all of ours. So indeed, you have critical understanding of theories and concepts, various techniques and skills, critical analysis and evaluation, communication methods, and I already emphasized autonomy and accountability, working with others. That is taking responsibility for your own work in a way that is quite distinctive and quite exciting, I think, for people on a learning journey. Now, there's a lot of master's courses available in education at Strathclyde. Here is a sort of map, let's say, of all the courses that I will talk a little bit about this lunchtime. We've got a little indication in the top right-hand corner of those courses which include versions that are online, delivered without having to be face-to-face. But you'll see there's autism, early years pedagogue, educational leadership, education studies, professional practice, TESOL, educational social research, and PG Cert in education. So I will talk a bit more about all of those in the subsequent slides. And if you have particular questions, I'm not involved in teaching on all of them, and there's details of the courses that will be able to get details from the particular course leaders. Actually, it's worth also saying that for all of these courses, there's details of them on the website, of course. So if one of these, presumably one of these will be of particular interest, do consult the web pages for details of all sorts of things relating to the course content, the entry requirements, and so forth. So I start off talking about the MSc Education Studies. It's a very popular program. It recruits widely across the world. It's a full-time course beginning in September, although there is also a January start date as well, which I will mention in a minute. So this is, I would say, central to the postgraduate taught programs at Strathclyde. And you can see the structure laid out visually on the slide there. semester one to semester two to semester three. Um, it begins with what I'm going to call foundations. There's a module here called Thinking About Education. And that provides students, even those students who have in the past some experience, and often students with experience of education, will come along, will do this module, and they'll learn quite a lot about education from a perspective that I think is theoretically informed in ways that they may not have encountered before. It's a foundational module then that sets the tone and runs alongside frameworks for understanding learning, which is more of a psychological approach to understanding learning processes. And I should have also mentioned that the modules are organized into pathways such that the blue ones that you see on the screen are compulsory. So those are undertaken by every student who studies the MSc Education Studies. And then the other colours, the green, the purple, the orange at the bottom, they show pathways, specialist pathways, elective pathways, as it's described on the slide, which means students will choose two additional modules that are connected in some way, which run to complete the taught phase of the program. So you've got, therefore, thinking about education, frameworks, research, methodology and reasoning, and globalization as the four compulsory modules. You'll also notice that there is a dissertation, which is compulsory, and that is running right from the start, right to the end. Don't panic. If a student does come on the course, they're not expected to have a dissertation plan for day one, but it just gives you a sense that start to think, students, we encourage to start thinking about dissertation quite early and continue thinking about it throughout the process. But really, the dissertation focus becomes in semester three. So everybody does a dissertation, and that's a big part of the course. Of course, that's in a way the culmination of the work that they've undertaken across the course. So I mentioned that MSc Education Studies offers pathways. And so you've got those three. So I, for instance, teach on the orange pathway, elective pathway 2, which is comprised of philosophy of technology and education and education and self-formation in cultural contexts. So a subset of the students on the MSc Education Studies will do those two. Some others will do putting theory into practice and professionalism and professional learning. And then others again will do leadership for learning and conceptions of leadership. I should say that not all pathways are always available. From time to time, we have two pathways available. So it does depend on various factors, application numbers, staff availability, and so forth. But generally speaking, those three pathways are available to students to take. Now, I can see lots of questions appearing in the. So is it something I should field as I go, Moira? No, okay. Okay, so that's the MSc Education Studies, the full-time course running from September. As I say, it's a popular course, popular with international students, and the approach is quite broad to education, quite broadly. So let's move on to the January version of the course. So essentially, it's very similar. The modules are very similar, but the timeline is different, and therefore the structure is slightly different. So you do again thinking about education, frameworks for understanding learning, research methodology. The the precise arrangement and options available to students. So you can see there's elective modules which are optional. They slightly depend on what availability. The January class is an additional version of the course, which is again quite popular. But the precise availability of electives does depend and does vary slightly from year to year. But so this gives you a good picture of the sorts of things you can expect to find on that course. Again, the dissertation is running across the whole thing. And you can see an additional dissertation support session in there to try and encourage students to start thinking about dissertation fairly early on. But it's worth noting that the dissertation really only starts during semester 3, or should I say, only really is the focus in semester 3, and that's a process in which each student is allocated a specialist supervisor with the expertise to supervise the chosen subject matter of interest. So if you're very interested in, I don't know, globalization, global policies of education in Malawi, for example, then I can't tell you that we will offer you a specialist in Malawi education system, but we will find someone whose interests and supervision experience can support you in thinking about global education. And that would then mean your dissertation supervisor would work with you following completion of all the standard modules. Right, so that's the Education Studies MSc. And here is, let's say, a bit of testimony from Nicola, who was one of our students on the September cohort some years ago now. I'll just read to you what she says. Juggling my duties as a parent, employee, and student has been difficult at times, but very rewarding. I found the lecturing staff to be most supportive, and I know that they have helped my fellow students through difficult times. I've been fortunate enough to have coped well. Thanks to the positive experience I've had this year, and thanks to the encouragement of my supervisor, I've applied to study a PhD in education. I believe I may have found my niche in conceptual research, and it would be my hope to continue the path to a career in academia. Well, I'm very happy to say that Nicola did complete her PhD. It's actually about to be published as her first book, and is now a full-time member of staff at the Institute. Now, I can't, of course, promise that trajectory for everybody, but it is a particularly good outcome for us, I think, because she's a wonderful colleague, and for her as a student on our masters. I'll as we go on, I'll add other testimonies from different students. Okay, so I'm now turning to the MSc in TESOL and intercultural communication. Now, I don't know as much about this course in the sense that I don't myself teach on it. But if you have questions about it, or if you're particularly interested in it, of course, there is details on the webpage, and you can contact the course leaders and they'll be delighted to respond to queries that you might have. And there's also a wider team of staff supporting queries that you have. But you can see, again, the structure is organized across semester 1 with some modules listed there. We have language learning in multilingual world, contemporary issues and language teaching, introduction to intercultural communication, research methods. Of course, I should have said that this course, this degree, is designed for people intending to pursue careers in English to speakers of other languages, TESOL, in case you don't know that. But I guess if you're interested in it, you do know that. Semester 2 has research methods and reasoning. and includes optional modules. Again, those optional modules do vary from year to year. And rather like all of the postgraduate talk programs, including the Education Studies one mentioned a few minutes ago, there is a dissertation, and the dissertation is supported by or prepared by the research methods course, in this case, research methodologies and reasoning. So that's undertaken, or the initial phase of dissertation is undertaken in the first part of semester two, and then the second part of semester two, you continue with your dissertation to write up. So that is the MSc TESOLIC, and there is also an MSc TESOLIC in January. Again, this is partly like the education studies due to the fact that there's a fairly significant group of students who prefer to begin in January because we have a significant international cohort in Strathclyde and a significant international student community. We certainly want to cater for students arriving in September or arriving in January. So indeed, the structure of the course hasn't changed. What's changed, I guess, is the timeline. In this case, you do begin with optional modules in January to March, and you do begin with research methods at that period. And then you do what you might call the core modules of language learning, contemporary issues, and methodologies and reasoning, research methodologies and reasoning, which continues. So the difference there is to accommodate the fact that we begin in January. So students therefore are able to access exactly the same learning, exactly the same student experience, but beginning in January. And you can also see, confusingly, at the end of the course, it's called semester one. It's just the way semester structure is working at Strathclyde. You can do introduction to intercultural communication then along with your dissertation. So I'm hoping now to provide some direct, let's say, testimony from one of the students, Liangji Chen from China, who took the MSc TESOL and Intercultural Communication. So I'm now going to play the video and hopefully it's optimized and you'll be able to hear and listen to what Liangji has to say.
Hi everyone, I'm Liangji Chen. I chose Strathclyde mainly because it's convenient location. Lots of jobs in the Glasgow city center. And I really like some of our class discussions about different English varieties and different cultures. Our teachers are warm and welcome, always willing to help. Yeah, this course has really changed some of my understandings of global Englishes. For instance, I realized the value of different varieties, and I no longer see non native English speakers as incompetent English teachers who teach standard English they don't really speak themselves. Yeah, for future students, just enjoy every day and explore more. Thank you.
Thank you, Liangji. So that's a frank account of Liangji's experience. He obviously enjoys Glasgow city centre, as he started off to say, and it is one of the great things about Strathclyde is the fact that we are in the heart of Glasgow, and that really, and you could hear the video starting with, I think, a police siren or some such thing. So it's quite a vibrant place to be. So I think that's something to think about as well. It's a really nice opportunity to be on campus. I'm now going to move to Hang Phan Toi from Vietnam, so who is also an MSc TESOL and intercultural communication student, and hopefully this will also work. See what she has to say.
So I chose University of Strathclyde to pursue my master's degree in teaching English to speakers of other languages and intercultural communication was because, first of all, the ranking of this university is good, and second of all, the module listed are suitable for what I'm looking for and what I hope to develop for my future career. Never in my life I experienced such a cultural diversity like that. All of my classmates, they come from so many different countries. They bring to the class so many different cultures, and even my lecturers, they come from 5 different countries. This is such a new and exciting thing for me because I didn't have that much of opportunity to meet so many people from so many countries like that when I was in my home country. If I have to describe my lecturers in 3 words, those would be knowledgeable, supportive, and friendly. They have a really deep understanding about what we get to learn about this field at the TESOLIC, and they would try to support you and give you as much information and books, resources as possible for you to get your assignment done as well as your dissertation done. The third thing is they are super friendly. Like, I've never thought that I could express myself in class that comfortably. Like, we can literally have discussion in the most comfortable way possible while we're in class, which was also something new that I get to experience since I study here. Before the course, I've always thought that language teachers are just like many other teachers who teach different subjects. But now I do believe that the whole language teaching and learning process are much more inspirational, and language teachers should now be considered a guide to lead their students, not just about giving away knowledge from one person to the others. Don't wait and don't hesitate no more. University of Strathclyde will not let you down, and you will appreciate every single moment that you experience here.
Okay, so thank you to Hang as well for her very warm appreciation. She mentioned the super friendly atmosphere between staff and students. I think it's really important to emphasize that point. You know that perhaps at undergraduate level you sort of feel like you're part of a big, I don't know, community, overwhelmingly large sometimes. Generally speaking, on the MSCs, on the education postgraduate talk programs in education, we have very friendly, approachable relationships between staff and students, and quite comfortably sized room classes and groups, and it's quite a friendly atmosphere. So I think that's very important to emphasize. Here we have more testimony briefly. I was really amazed by how professional and organized the online platform was. So we also have to make sure that what we do, and often what we do, involves online learning and blends either blended versions, and there'll be some courses which are much more online and some entirely online. I also like the talented teachers and their respectful attitude towards students. I admired how passionate they are about their subjects. So that's some Samaya from Saudi Arabia. So now I'm going to move on, having spoken about a couple of the big courses that we offer, which is Education Studies and TESOL and Intercultural Communication. I'll move on now to different kinds of courses, part-time courses in this case, for practitioners in Scottish schools. So what that means is that there are many teachers who work in schools, have perhaps done their postgraduate teaching qualification, the PGDE, either here at Strathclyde or somewhere else in Scotland, and they want to continue studies in one form or another, which might mean that they want to top up master's level credits that they already got during their postgraduate diploma, their PGDE, And they can do that by undertaking things like the MEd in professional practice or the MEd education studies. Now I'm going to move on to describe this in a bit more detail here. So I've already mentioned that in Scotland, students will be taking a PGDE to qualify to become a teacher. Having done so, there are many people working in schools having done that, and then they want to continue to top up their credits. So let me just circle that there. You can see that's what they'll have done as part of the teacher education program. And maybe some of you today who are joining us have done your PGDE and have those master's credits already, because when you do a PGDE, you're allowed to select that the work you submit is assessed against the level 11 qualification framework. In other words, it becomes master's credits. So you've already got that. That's in the bank, so to speak. And what you're able to then do is then do additional credits. So you have research methods, plus one optional module. And then that's all you need to do, along with a dissertation, which is something you'd be passionate about anyway, and you'd be supervised to do. And that leads you to your Masters in Education Professional Practice. So you're basically taking advantage of the fact that you've already got master's credits when you do your PGDE. Now, not everybody would have done that, but many students who've done PGDE in Scotland will already have master's credits that they can capitalise on. So it's a really great way of maximising the benefits of what you've already done. Here's another model. We also have flexible modules on our MEd education studies. And you can see that students will have perhaps a maximum of 40 PGD credits to begin in this case. So it depends, it varies how many credits people bring. In this case, they bring less, which means they can take more of our optional modules. And we have, you can see listed at the bottom of the screen, highlighted a few pathways of optional modules: inclusive education, supporting teacher learning, educational leadership, and technology enhanced learning. So each of these are pathways comprised, each of these are comprised of 3 modules that form 60 credits. So in the first year, someone who's working in the school might be able to then undertake additional modules. They'd be working hard because I'm normally working full time and then doing this on top, but it's possible. We have many students who are very successful in doing this. Then they add research methods to that. And then finally, they add a dissertation, which would lead to an MEd education studies. So it's a great way, again, to build on the credits that you will have acquired at PGDE and specialize in something of particular interest. Perhaps you're working as ASN coordinator in a school, and you'd like to develop more skills in inclusive education. Or perhaps you're thinking about becoming a part of the senior leadership team, or you are part of the senior leadership team, and you'd like support with educational leadership. Well, there are specialist pathways supporting exactly those interests. So we encourage students to think about that, build on what they already have, and in the end, work towards an MEd in education studies, which might indeed continue then afterwards to lead to further study of a doctoral nature. So again, we have a few brief MEd professional practice quotes from students. One says, "I really enjoy learning new things and continuing with my master's student studies while working made sense, not only to enhance my knowledge of policy, but also to put this into practice." So that's really the point, that you bring together a new understanding of policy and relate that to practice. I'll continue the quote. "As part of the MEd professional practice, my dissertation linked to my role in pastoral care. I was able to share my findings with my colleagues, which was a positive experience. As a relatively new teacher, it also gave me confidence in my own practice." And that's it, providing additional professional development for teachers. It's a wonderful opportunity. The second quote, the research project has been incredibly valuable in shaping my teaching practice. At present, I am actively engaging with different schools to explore their anti-racist policies and the strategies employed by teachers. This has amplified my interest in pursuing a PhD in education. Indeed, so I have supervised many students who are teachers, and I know from their experience it's hard work, but very rewarding and can lead to further study, PhD, further leadership roles. So something to think about. Now, I won't talk much more about all the different options here. We have, as you can see, a very popular and very well-respected master's program suite in autism. And you can see that speaks to a particular sector of education, health and social work. And it's a very strong area of research and teaching within the Institute. And I have to celebrate really the work of the autism team in education. So if that's something that interests you, I really encourage you to get in touch with the course leaders in autism. And there's details of the MSc here. Again, it's SEQF at level 11, of course. It's a full-time course, although there are options, different pathways for running it part-time. But the full-time is 180 credits over 1 year. And you can see 3 core autism and practice modules, followed by an autism placement module and research methods. So pretty much all the postgraduate programs include research methods. And there's an optional elements as well. And again, finally, the dissertation is the culmination for the MSc Autism, where students get to work on something that they're really passionate about. Jerusha Mashi from India, she undertook the MSc Autism, and she said, this course has helped me understand an autistic person as a whole and what they would be comfortable with. The best part is that we get to learn about the emotional well-being of the autistic individuals and how we as a society can lessen the mental health challenges they face primarily by accepting them and making sure they feel belonged. Okay, so that was the autism. Now, moving on to the Strathclyde, what's called the International, which is what the I stands for, International PGCE, a master's level professional development program for teachers who work around the world. It's fully online, flexible, and is to do with combining reflective practice with support for classroom practice. In other words, again, emphasizing the connection between theory and practice towards developing professional judgment. So having given you a sort of smattering of the courses, there's more there that I could say. I've said a lot already, so I won't continue talking about the courses. And here are some points as to why Strathclyde is a great place to be. And I've already highlighted some of these points, the small groups, the close relationships, the placement opportunities, the vibrant community of international and Scottish students, the flexible learning options, caring staff, personalised learning, and extensive alumni and global reputation. And finally, the city itself, a great place to be, a great place to study, a great place to work. Here are the course leader email addresses. Now you can find details online, but if you want to make a note about of the course leader for the particular courses that interest you, then here are those email addresses. I will leave them up for a few seconds while I take a drink. And we can, of course, follow up with particular questions you might have about anything if there's things you want to ask. Okay, so are there any questions directed to myself before we hand over to the admissions part of the presentation? Okay.